Yo, what's going on, guys? Reversal here, and today I'm be doing a quick branded Chimera deck profile for the current format. I think this deck is pretty decent. It's definitely not like a top meta deck or anything, but I think it's something that you could definitely uh, bring to like a regional or something and do perfectly fine at. Um, it has a lot of one card combos. It has a ton of non-engine space, so anytime a deck has that, it's already going to be decent enough just based off that. So. Um, And another good thing about this deck is it can be made uh, on a relatively low budget as well if you choose to cut some things. So that's something that's cool as well. This isn't going to be like a super budget friendly list, but there's definitely some cards that you can take out and that would make it a very cheap deck. So yeah, without further ado, I'll just get straight into it. But before I do that, definitely drop a sub if you haven't already. See more deck profiles and stuff. I usually just do mostly Dino stuff, but there's a few other decks that I dabble with, so I figured I'd just share them. But yeah, let's get straight into it. Got 3 Sword Knight, 3 Cornfield. Those are 1-card starters. 3 Gazelle, 2 Berfamit. This card is kind of a brick, but it's like fine to draw sometimes, but you don't really want to see it. So I think 2's perfect for this. If you play 3, it gets a little more bricky. You do miss being able to search the 3rd one sometimes or summon it off like a Sword Knight in a grind game, but I think 2's perfect. And then Gazelle, if you draw this in combination with either this or a Chimera Fusion or some other combinations, it works as like 2-card combos. So you still want to play these. And then you just want the most amount of these as you can, just so you could constantly be adding them to your hand, and just the recursiveness is nice for this deck. Then we got the 2 Albaz and the 1 Hex Seal for the Brand of Fusion package. I like making Dragoon in this deck. I think it helps a lot, whether it's to protect your Sword Knight line from resolving or just anything of that nature. Just Dragoon's just a really good card still. I think this deck gets a lot of it hand advantage, so the discard doesn't hurt a lot, and then Dragoon's just a powerful monster in itself. So anytime I get the chance to play that card, I'm definitely down to do so. You'll see some people use the Goddess. It's the same exact thing as this pretty much. You'll see some people use Versago because it's a fiend, but in my opinion, I think the light one's better, just so you can make Albion and not have to go through Lubellion to discard an additional card. Because once you're doing that, you're discarding way too many cards, and you really want to keep the hand advantage with this deck, since that's like the main thing it's good for. Yeah, that's it for the monsters. For the engine spell stuff, we just got 3 Brand of Fusion, 3 Chimera Fusion. Brand of Fusion is another 1-card starter. Gets you to the Dragoon, or it gets you to the Chimera lines through the Rinbrum. It's really nice. And then the Chimera Fusions, you could definitely get away with 2 of these, but I find that drawing it's like fine for the most part. Sometimes you want to have 1 in your hand before searching it, just because it can help you, like if you have the Gazelle and this, like it's just another 2-card combo to go with your 1-card combos. So, and then sometimes in the grind game, if you only play 2, you'll miss the 3rd one. So I feel like you just play 3 and it's fine, but you could definitely get away with 2 if you want to slim the deck down a little bit. This is a 42-card list, but you could easily trim it down to 40 if you wanted to, but I find 42 is fine because you want to see the 1-card combos, but if you bump from 40 to 42, you're only losing like a slight like 2% to see a 1-card combo, but you have the other 2-card combos, and then you really don't want to clog on the engine stuff. So if you see like a hand full of like Sword Knights and Gazelles and stuff, where it's just you have a bunch of those, like it's kind of shitty to see like all of them at once. So just playing a slightly higher deck count can help not clogging them as bad, and then you can still play all the non-engine and defensive cards that you want. So but you could definitely trim down to 40 if you want to, but I don't think you need to in this deck. I think it's consistent enough. For the other additional spell cards, we have 3 crossout, 1 call by, 1 talents. These are like your defensive cards. Crossout is good in this deck since you're playing all the non-engine already, and this deck can be pretty fragile at times, so I feel like you have to play these, whether it's at 2 or 3, I feel like you need to play them somewhere. Just to kind of help ensure your plays go through, because once your opponent starts hand trapping you, like the combo that you do isn't like crazy or anything, but if you can cross out after they use a hand trap and still do your combo, like you're ripping a card out of their hand with the Chimera fusion, and then if you see talents as well, like you could rip another card. So you just have a few ways to just kind of make your opponent waste their hand, and then you're still ending on like the same stuff. Same thing with call by. These are just good defensive cards for this deck because, like I said, it can be fragile, and you really want your opponent to start throwing their stuff at you. And if you have a counter for it, like you're getting so much advantage at that point, and they're just playing with a lot less cards. Then we have the 3 super polys. I think this card's pretty good in general right now, but obviously if you're playing a fusion deck, this card gets a little better. Just because like stuff like Albaz can help make this card live in matchups where it's not as good. And you do gain a lot of hand advantage in this deck as well, so the discard doesn't hurt. So I think this card's nice right now, especially in this deck. And now for the rest of the non-engine, playing 3 Fenrir. Fenrir is just Fenrir. The 3+1's nice, an extra monster for Chimera Fusion to go into Guardian Chimera. Gets you discards for Dragoon and Super Poly. And then it's just a nice big body that has a relevant effect. So when the game stays simplified, this card can just help you make pushes and kind of buy you time. So I think this card's great in this deck. Then we got hand traps, 3 Ash, 2 Veiler, 2 Nib, 1 Droll, and 3 Imperm. These are like crossout ratios, I guess, but I feel like Ash and Imperm are like the 2 best generic ones right now. And then Veiler's pretty good as well. If I was playing all hand traps without like crossouts in general, if I had like 12 slots, I'd probably do 3-3 and then 3 of these 3. But since I'm playing crossout, I want the 1 Droll, just because Droll can kind of be very good against this deck sometimes. Like if you don't start with certain hands, like if you don't start with Mirror Sword Knight or something, the Droll can be very impactful. So I feel like you just want to play 1 for the crossout and then side the other 2. Because like this card in this deck specifically, if you have it going first, it can be weird since this does turn off your Guardian Chimera when you're going first. So like on their turn, if you draw them, you can't Guardian Chimera after that because you can't draw cards. So I don't love this card going first. So I think just having 1 as a crossout target, and then if you go second, it's like and you draw it, it's fine because it's a pretty good card. Then the Nibs and Veilers, I feel like running 2 is fine just because Veiler's just more Imperm. But it does play into talent, so it's slightly worse, and it's not as good as a 6 card. And then the Nibs, it's a good card. On its own, you usually need it to pair with one of these or something, but it's pretty good in general. But since you do play Fenrir, it can conflict, so I feel like running 2 is also fine. So now for the extra deck, we got the 1 Dragoon to go into off the Brand Fusion. Like I said, cards are really nice. 1 Rimbrum, same thing, to go to bridge your Brand Fusion to your Chimera plays. The 1 Mirror Jade, I don't think you need 2. You don't usually make it on turn 1. 2 Albion, just if you make this to go into the Peck Seal, so you have another one to send off Mirror Jade later on. The 1 Lebellion, you can make that occasionally. 2 Chimera King of Phantom Beasts. You could definitely get away with playing 1 of these, but just have 2 just in case. The Illusion Beast for OTK lines. The Baphomet. This was like the newest card. This card's pretty cool to do some stuff with the side deck, which I'll get into later. 2 Guardian Chimera. Same thing as the Chimera King. You could definitely get away with 1 of these for sure. But just have the second one in because it comes out sometimes. And then for super poly targets, we have Dragostapelia. This can also be made off Chimera fusion sometimes, so you play it regardless. Mudragon and Garura, these are just the best 2 generic targets. And then some additional cards in case you choose to cut down on the Chimera King, or if you cut down on one of the Guardian Chimeras, if like you can only afford to get one or whatever. Magnum the Reliever is another card you can play. Was playing it before, but it wasn't really coming up that much, so I just decided to cut it. And then you have the Guilty Gearfried and the Draco Crest, which are additional super poly targets. This card's mainly for like Vanadium, and then this is mainly for boards that end on Baron plus SP Little Knight. I think just playing like these are perfectly fine for super poly, but if you do have the extra space, these are definitely something to consider. So that's it for the extra deck. And then also SP and Typhon are definitely cards that I think you could play as well if you have them. But I haven't really played them in this deck really, so I don't know how often they come up with like the fusion locks and stuff. So they're definitely not necessary, but maybe they're good enough to include. I just haven't bothered trying, to be honest. So for the side, we got the 3rd nib and 2 more Drolls to kind of round out those playsets for when you do want to have 3. Then we got 2 Bell, 2 Crow. I keep going back and forth with which one I think is better between these, so I just threw 2 and 2. You could definitely cut one completely and bump the other to 3 or whatever, but I just wanted to include them just to kind of show that they're worth considering. We got the 2 Thrust, then the Duster, Lightning Storm, 2 Cosmics, and 2 Evenlies. These are just to make the thrust more flexible. This can search you into your like branded fusion as well, which is nice. So just loading up on board breakers just to go with everything else. And then the Cosmics are flexible for when you go first as well. So I wanted to include those as well. So you just have a lot of different options for just mass board clears and then just back row in general, which I feel like is something that you definitely want to have answers for. But this stuff's all like flexible. Just you can cut something. To talk about these, we have the End of Anubis and the Barrier Statue of the Abyss. These are like the 2 best things to go into off the new fusion. If I can find it, off this guy. So what this allows you to do is you could dump a Fiend and then you could bring it back off the other one, off this one. So if you want to go for a line with the Chimera fusion that's not more focused on Guardian Chimera, like if you have to pick one, you could use this to dump one of these and then use this one to bring it back on their turn. So you have a couple different floodgates. Graveyard effects are pretty prevalent right now, so this can be nice. And then just the dark special summon lock is nice since there's a lot of fire decks and stuff, as we know. So it's actually not a lot of decks that are just like ending on a bunch of dark monsters, so or playing through dark monsters. So as long as you have a way to protect this, it can be really nice as well. So like say you're facing one of the fire decks and they just special the Abelstar, which is a dark. You definitely want to make sure you have an answer to get rid of that. Otherwise it can just beat over it. So definitely keep that in mind. But these are like the 2 things to definitely consider playing. This one's just a better generic one, and then the End of Anubis is nice in the matchups where the opponent's very graveyard heavy. King Tiger Wangu is another option you could play for like Pearly and Sprite, but I don't think you need to play that one. But yeah, that's about it. Just branded Chimera. It's a relatively simple deck. It's not like super hard to play. You just have to kind of manage your resources and know what to trade with your opponent when it comes to like using your interruptions, since you can be limited at times in what you have. So you kind of want to know what to be hitting in your opponent's deck to use your stuff the best. But yeah, this deck's like fine. It's consistent and you have a lot of non-engine, so Because anytime your deck has a bunch of 1-card combos and a bunch of non-engine, it's automatically just decent just based off that. So yeah, that's going to be it for this profile. If you've been playing this deck, definitely drop a comment. Let me know how it's been going for you. And if you have any suggestions or whatever for tech choices to consider, definitely throw a comment. But yeah, that's about it. Have a good day. Peace.